Those details. Appreciate you joining us. Moving on, fintech industry body announces a new code of conduct for digital lenders. My colleague Ritu Singh has more. Ritu, over to you.
In what's brewing today, the Fintech Association for Consumer Empowerment, or FACE, has come up with a new code of conduct for digital lenders to advance consumer interests and safeguard against any harm. The code is going to be mandatory for all 44 of its lending members, which represent close to 50% share in retail unsecured digital lending through digital lending apps. These fintechs are expected to implement the changes to align with the code in 3 months' time. Joining me now to talk about the significance of this is the CEO of FACE, Sugandh Saxena. Sugandh, welcome to Startup Street, and thank you again for your time here on CNBC-TV18. You know, we've seen a significant spurt in unsecured retail lending by fintechs, and while it comes with the positives, there are also negatives, specifically when it comes to unethical recovery practices which have come to light in the last couple of years. How does this code address some of these challenges to safeguard customers?
So, digital lending industry does very huge number of volumes, and, as you said, it has really spurred the financial inclusion in this country, giving a lot of consumers who don't have any access to credit. This code really looks at a lot of learning which has happened over the 3 years, as you said, recovery practices, data protection, cybersecurity issues, and very explicitly covers very clear set of norms for our members and also for the industry as a whole to ensure that this doesn't happen. So if you look at the code, our earlier code has just 2 norms when it comes to recovery practices. Today we have 10 norms saying what exactly has to be done when it comes to recovery practices. So this code is much more granular, much more clear set of rules for a member so that it's very easy for them to implement them. And we really hope that this will help all the members to really push the benchmark in terms of customer protection.
But Sugandh, if you could give us specific examples, how does this take forward RBI's digital lending guidelines, which talk about similar measures for customer protection? What is in this conduct which is not already covered by regulations?
For example, if you look at RBI digital guidelines, it covers a lot in terms of disclosure and the transaction. But if you look at our code of conduct, we have focused very much on the appropriateness, right? So when we talk about appropriateness, when we say that it's starting with customer onboarding, so getting the right set of documents, understanding their repayment capacity and therefore underwriting to be very robust, service them in an appropriate way so that they have all the information necessary for them. And if at all they're not able to pay, a very systemic process to deal with their distress if that happens. So what we have tried to do with this code of conduct is within the regulatory parameters, define much more rules and clear guidelines for our members which they can follow.
What is the sort of conversation you've had with the RBI and the industry to evolve yourself, as we understand, to become the SRO for fintechs in India?
We are very focused on the fintech lending segment, right? So fintech is a catch-all term, right? There are different product segments and each product category comes with its own set of nuances and risks. And therefore, I'm not sure whether even regulators thinking an all-encompassing SRO. But for digital lending, this is something which RBI has already articulated in August last year that they would like to have a SRO for digital lending. And there, as I said, our members cover very significant market in terms of volume. And we are very well positioned to be an SRO for that particular segment, which is fintech lending segment.
What is the next step? Is there legal or is there recognition from RBI about FACE being the SRO for digital lending fintechs in India? Is there consensus among the industry on your role?
So I think as a members, self-regulation really self-regulation. So as members, our mandate first comes from the members who give us the remit to say, you frame the rules and you enforce the rules. So that's the most powerful thing for us. And we will start enforcing those rules in a very impartial way through an enforcement committee. Regulatory recognition is certainly very important. Whenever RBI issues a separate guidelines for SROs in digital lending sector, we would again apply. We have already applied, but whenever specific guidelines come for the digital lending, but that doesn't stop us from doing right thing, which is self-regulating the sector.
Give us a sense of the growth trajectory from here on. To what extent will digital lending grow in the next year or so, and how much market share in the long to medium term do you see digital lending having in the overall retail lending pool?
So I think retail in India is roughly, 50 lakh, 55 lakh crore market. It's a very huge market. We are, if you look at in terms of value, we are just about 2% of it. But fintech lending has to be measured on the metrics of volumes. And when it comes to volumes, members alone do 7 crore loans, which is a very huge number. Outlook is very, very positive because we all know India remains highly underpenetrated market in terms of credit. There is a huge demand which is still available with the economy growing and all the fundamentals remain intact. We foresee that fintech lending will have a very important contribution to make in terms of meeting domestic demand. And therefore, we have a huge long runway ahead of us in which multiple players can thrive and meet that demand. So outlook from our perspective is very positive. However, I would like to say that differentiating factor would be the value creation which fintechs do in terms of keeping customer at a fore. And any lender who is able to achieve that through proper risk management, governance, and customer protection practices, there is no limit in terms of.
All right, Sugandh, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
On that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up next, sources tell CNBC-TV18 that Mama Earth is prepping to go public in November. My colleague Aishwarya Anand brings us a special report on the other side. Stay tuned.